I was watching Lama Todd last night, and
Mm-hmm.
like he was doing party finder clears, and it kind of got me realizing that the way I came at it, it's not just that I played with people who were really well prepared, but like um, people go into Savage and they really do go in blind,
Okay.
and they really do expect a clear. Um, like don't get me wrong, I love going into things blind, but like I wouldn't go into running a marathon blind. I wouldn't try to lift 500 pounds blind. Like, there are certain times when something's been described as hard or impossible or like the most difficult. Like, I'm not somebody that's going to go climb the tallest mountain blind. Like, I'll go to your local climbing gym with you blind. If you're a big climber, I've never been a big climber. Dude, come to they got a beginner wall. I will do no prep. I'm not going to watch a video. I'm not going to read a guide. I will come climb your beginner wall in your safe space over your mat with the rope attached to me and your advice. I will do that.
Yeah.
But I don't know where the line is where it's the person's fault for expecting a better result and not getting it. Because
So
there are people
yeah.
frustrated they're not getting a clear, but then they've literally never watched one guide.
Is a part of that then essentially tied into the kind of mindset that the core game doesn't essentially ask that of the player, and so that there is a bigger step to kind of get over? Or
I
is
don't
the
know.
core game's experience, because you could easily say that's, I can see that mentality in normal content, in 24-man content, in 48-man content, where it's like, you know what, if I don't know what's really going on, as long as somebody else knows, like if as long as the majority of people know what to do, I can go stand with them, right? That's a kind of learning through, oh, I see 7 people standing on that
Not what the
square.
goal is.
Maybe I should go stand on that square. But having the expectation of that, it's a really interesting,
I don't even know what the goal is.
psychological thing, because I've gone in to Diamond EX blind, having not done any research, but put up a party finder as a party lead saying, I want to do a blind run of this content, and I want to
Right.
learn through like pain in this way and see, is this something that will be fun to do. Turns out you get 2 runs, because I guess people say, oh,
I was expecting something different.
okay,
I
talk
think
to me
that's
about
where I
that.
have the issue.
Yeah.
Is that's what they're saying? They're saying I was expecting something different. I think that's where the issue is. Like if I'm gonna go run a marathon and I've trained for it and I say, hey Brian, they got an extra spot. They'll let you run for free. You
Mm-hmm.
can drop out at any time. With no prep, it is perfectly safe for you to just take off with me at the beginning. And if after 1 mile, 2 mile, three
Mm-hmm.
mile, 10 miles, you decide that's enough, you can just peel off and there's no consequences.
Right. Now,
But
you
if
good.
you and I go sign up for a relay
Mm-hmm.
and I say, hey, my partner dropped. We're going to be doing this relay together. Can you come do this with me? And you say yes. And I say, cool. So you're ready for something like this? And you say, totally. And you've done no work. Then now, me, who's maybe prepped for this event, now has to live with you not having done prep. So I think where I run into issues is like the number of times I'm watching people stream and they're in clear parties,
Mm-hmm.
they're in prog parties for phase 3, and then it is very clear they have not mastered phase 1. And so I think it's all about expectations. Well, like if you want to run a blind party, run a blind party, but you're also probably not expecting a clear. When we did minimum item level extreme the other day, I was not expecting a clear, and we didn't get a clear. Delivered expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think the issue is that like people are doing savage reclears at this point, and somebody's like, well, I can't find a learning party, so I'll just hop in.
Mm-hmm.
And they've never installed a parser, and they've never done Stone Sky Sea Air, and they've never asked somebody for feedback. And the streamer has a parser on the screen, and they're not saying anything because that's against terms. And so I don't. Maybe they're not saying things because they're polite. Maybe they're not saying things because they're not allowed to. We don't know the difference because it's against the rules, so they're not doing it. But you've got somebody whose DPS is 10, 20, 30, 40% lower than it should be in a fight that has a DPS check. We're not talking casual where it's adjusted to be like, well, take however long you need. No. This fight will kill everybody in the party if you are not clear by this point. And you're just dragging it through under this like, well, I like how I play, and so I'm not going to change. But it's not about you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
you're dragging these 7 strangers through your life's choices. And that's much closer to like, I'm going to go drive a bus and I'm going to drink before I drive because I don't care if I get in a wreck. That's very different than, I live out in the country and I'm going to drive my car on my property and drink and drive. And if I wreck it, it's me. That's very, very different than getting out on the highway in a large vehicle with other people in it and making a reckless decision.
So what's the expectation? How does the player go from, being that kind of, like I guess more casual player and making that jump into the harder core content? Like I can't control them. I mean, if you go and set, that's why I think probably why they get frustrated that there are no clear parties, because people set in the party finder and etc. You set that you have to have cleared this. Like they cannot, like, hey, we're going to jump into this. You can't get in without that flag being on your account.
I don't know, because if I wasn't invited to a carry party for the sake of charity, like I wasn't qualified to be in that party.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was invited, and I was invited because of the charity event.
Yeah.
And because some people on the internet knew who we are, like, and so that's not repeatable. That's not scalable. Like that's not a reasonable expectation. I would say there are plenty of Discord communities where you can go in and do your personal trainer thing that you were just talking about.
Yeah.
There are plenty of communities like Llama Todd, who welcome people in their first clear. There are plenty of people who, like Frosty, who goes and joins non-clear parties on his stream all the time. And so there are non-clear parties. And then just because it's not a non-clear party does not give you unlimited license to not be prepared. Mm-hmm. So you need to have the evening set aside. Like you can't be like, oh, well, in a little bit, I'm probably gonna have to get a phone call and need to go. Well, then tonight's not the night. Mm-hmm. Like you have the rest of time. The content's not going anywhere. And when it does, it's because we're replacing it with different content. So you can just do that. Like it doesn't matter what your first savage is. It doesn't matter if it's, Eden, or if it's the first tier, if it's Pandemonium, or if it's the one after that. It doesn't matter. Just run something. So you've got to be as respectful as possible in all the things you can control. So if I am not good at DPS, mm-hmm. I can go practice that in normal. I can go practice my rotation in normal. If I'm not good at the mechanics, I can't practice that in normal. Savage mechanics are different. Okay, well, what can I control? Well, I can make sure that my wife knows I'm playing games, and like on this one night, a week in advance, hey, I was planning on playing games that night, and like I'm gonna kind of focus. So is there anything I can do? And she goes, well, as long as the dishes are done, the trash is taken out, we're going on a date the night before, so we'll spend time together. You have that night, and I'll just act like you're not even home. Like take control of all the things you can, mm-hmm. so that you're bringing as little inconvenience to the party as possible. Do everything you would hope somebody would do for you. There's nothing ruder than like, hey, I'm going to give you a ride to the airport and we're going to ride a flight to FanFest together. And then I show up and you're like, hey, I haven't even packed. Well, now we're both going to be late. Like I agreed to do you a favor and you didn't even pack. And I just have to live with that decision.
How much do you think that let's take Lamatod, for example, and Fiery on Flare brings this up, is that being that Lamatod has kind of that reputation, and as he has grown as a content creator, especially within the Final Fantasy community, how much is that expectation of you see Lamatod in your party, or you see a Lamatod party finder? Like, are you expecting that clear? Does that have any weight or the expectation on the player who's already expecting a carry?
That's got to be a personal thing, because I can tell you that the charity event, Todd told me, let's do Diamond. It'll probably take 2 lockouts to get through 9. Mm-hmm. That's what he told me. And so he thought I would need to learn. So I prepped the crap out of Extreme. I prepped the crap out of 9. And I prepped the crap out of 10, just in case, because mm-hmm. my old raid leads, and when I've helped raid lead, was always prep for the fight we tell you about and prep for the fight after that. That way, if we have spare time in the raid night, we're getting good first pulls on that next boss, not expecting a clear, but you need to know the whole fight just in case we make it to the final phase for Prague. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I come from. And when we got into 11, I can tell you, I was embarrassed, like sick to my stomach, embarrassed. Didn't feel good at all. And he was polite. Everybody else was polite. Chat was supportive. You're doing great. I was embarrassed. And so that's got to be a personal thing. I don't know where that comes from. I don't know if it's a good trait or a bad trait. I know that when I show up to something where people expected me to be prepared and I'm not prepared, I can feel that whether or not it shows, I feel like I'm flush in the face. Like it just feels If I show up and you say like, "Where's the tickets?" and I was supposed to bring them, like I feel sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
Like literally physically ill. And so I have no idea. And so if Lama Todd's in my party, in my mind, that ups the stakes because now it is reasonably possible that we could get a clear. And if we don't, it's probably my fault because it's sure as heck not his. So it just, in my mind, having him in the party is not a blessing. It is a shift. There is pros and there are cons, because the cons is like there is something really nice about learning in a fight and making a mistake, and then the party recovering from that mistake and then someone else wiping the party. There is something really nice about like, okay, we're all learning, so we're not all focused on me being the only person that made a mistake. So we're gonna go back to the beginning and we're all gonna do better. And it's okay that you made a mistake because like I did too. So for me, I think that's an unreasonable. I did not expect us to make it to 11. I assumed I would hold us back sooner. I think that's got to be a personal thing. That's got to just be personal accountability. Right. I don't know where that comes from. I don't know if I come from a family that's not afraid to shame you. I don't know if that's good or bad. It just is. And so like I come from a family where not being prepared was shamed. And so that's probably where that sick to my stomach is. I'm probably expecting to be shamed. There's probably some like deep seated, I should lay on the couch and talk about how I feel about this. But like, for me, I don't think that showing up to a party and expecting a clear is ever a healthy entry point. For somebody who has never cleared themselves.
But I don't think that's something that, at least in my mind, I have no ability to control that expectation in another person. So the only thing to do is obviously to have a video like this and kind of talk about it to a degree, saying like, hey, once you're getting into multiplayer content, note that there are your responsibilities. And then I go, well, you know, is that something that Desperus could help out with? Is that something that the content creating community, Happy, you know, Miss Tech and more Zeppela like can help with, you know, set the like that expectation with guides? Like, is it what, you know, like the question is why aren't you prepared? Like, what is the reason why you're expecting that? Is it that you've tried to find things and they just don't resonate because people receive information differently? Sure. That's why we try to continually encourage more content creators in this space, because I think it helps both the game and it helps the overall ability for somebody to find somebody they connect with and relate to in that minds. Because take it for example, if there's content creators, we're not going to go into the names specific content, but it's like that shame, that get good or go home, go, you know, like, no, like this is like that focused performance. People resonate with that. Like sometimes it's like I was talking about earlier before we started filming about like exercise, like sometimes lighting that fire under my butt does good. Like, you know, holding my hand, telling me everything's going to be okay works in some instances. It's all a matter of who your audience is in that point. And I use the term audience in the same way I would use it in a teaching way. Like if you have a master's degree in, you know, architecture, I'm going to talk to you in words and phrases that you understand. If you were, you know, my 6-year-old daughter, I'm going to talk to you in words and phrases that you understand, you know, because, and the goal isn't to talk over your head. The goal is to help come to that understanding, to come to this, you know, to a conclusion, to come to, you know, whether we end up being agreeable on whatever the issue is, but at least it's that, you know, it doesn't devolve into wars. And in the case of like a toddler, tantrums, you know.
Yeah, I think context is everything. Mm-hmm. So failing, you and I love doing the new Trial and Dungeons blind day one.
Yeah. Oh, it's fun.
But the benefit is it's also fairly unspoken. Like you don't have to put up a blind party finder because everybody's blind.
Yeah.
And so there is something about like, hey, content's been out 6 days and you didn't know what that mechanic was. That's fine. As opposed to something like E9 now, and you're starting Savage now, and there's multiple sources of 530. The guides have been put out by multiple content creators, including the ones that really do take their time to take it to another production level, and the ones who put it out early. There are multiple written guides, verbal guides, streamers clearing the content that take questions. There are a lot of sources. And so I think a lot of it is like, when somebody doesn't have control of a situation, it's easier to be sympathetic.
Yeah.
When, you know, if I showed up to your house and your bag was packed, and, you know, we're going to that airport, and then one of your kids comes in and like, you know, the bag's open because you're like going, okay, I just got to get my phone charger and I'll be ready. You go upstairs to get your phone charger, and I watch one of your kids walk up and just dump a glass of milk into your bag. I'm not mad you're late. like, because you were packed. And
Yeah.
so it was outside of your control. Like, that's just something that a kid can do. And so if somebody gets a flat tire on the way to work,
Right.
that's fine. But somebody gets a flat tire on the way to work and they are driving on a donut, and that's like the 5th flat tire in the last month. And it's like, okay, well, at some point. And so it's just a question of like, well, how much access did they have to avoid this situation? And at this point in the patch, I'm embarrassed that I didn't perform better in 11, and I don't know where that comes from. And that's not a point of like, that doesn't mean don't do it. That doesn't mean don't do it. The reason I was embarrassed is because the information was out there. I wasn't embarrassed because I failed. I am happy to fail. I fail publicly all the time. What I want to know is that I did everything within my power to put myself in a position to succeed, and that because I didn't, that's fine. And so the first wipe on Diamond didn't bother me. The wipes on 9 didn't bother me. The wipes on 10 didn't bother me because there was no way I could have prepped more.
Right.
What bothered me is that on 11, I had that guide. I watched it twice and considered it good enough because we won't get there. That was a choice to stop preparing. And it wasn't stop preparing because, oh, like I had other stuff to do. It was stop preparing because like I was going to watch TV with my wife. Like I could have kept watching. I wasn't doing something productive with my time. I was sitting out on my back patio having a beer. And so that's...
And
you
so, also
like,
earned
I
that
made a choice.
from like 11 days of straight like hardcore work. It's that, you know, like, you know,
sure. I'm not going to let it ruin my life that I made this mistake, but I am going to say, okay,
Chris is canceled.
Todd
Let's
said,
do it.
hey, when do you want to finish the tier? And I can tell you right now, I will be prepared for that raid. It doesn't mean I'll do well, but I will be prepared. I will have the best item level that is reasonably expectable of me. So I'm getting at least 1 new 530 every week. I'm working on my relic to make it nice and best in slot. I'm going to watch the crap out of guides. And I sit in streams and watch 11 at night. Last night you were live playing Final Fantasy 11.
Yeah. And
I popped into your stream for a bit, didn't understand what you were talking about, and I popped out to watch Savage clears.
Yeah.
Why? Because I want to clear Savage. It would have been nice to hang out with you, but I popped out because like I want to be prepared. And so I think my frustration with this when I watch these people clear is that it tends to be that they expect something for nothing. It's not that he's joining parties that say, hey, blind clear, you know, just looking for prog. That's not what happens. It's, you know, they join a clear party and they're like, hey, you're going to carry me. I'm going to get loot. I did nothing. I'm wearing all 490s with no materia in it. I'm undergeared. I've done no prep. I have no idea what my rotation is. I guess I don't understand why we're still wiping. Or is that just it? So we're just doing 2 parties? We should probably call it. That's where I get frustrated.
It's an interesting conundrum, you know, in that regards. Because like when you're talking about it, like I'd love to do Savage, you know, like I'd love to. And I would, you know, my case is that let's say that we decided to do that this summer. Like on my last video, I said if any video we gets 10,000 likes, so I said in that video, I'll keep doubling down. I honestly, I'll just keep doing it. Like if any video that we get,
it got a little bit of likes.
It's got 1,000. It got a little bit of likes. So, you know, so it's still sitting out there. 10,000. If you guys want me to play through the story, I'll do that. Like we could also put the same kind of challenge down. Like if you guys want, like that's something that is interested in me, and then I can find and make and schedule the time, and then obviously prepare. Like because I wouldn't, you know, like if I was going to do a blind run, like that is something fascinating. In the case of as long as everybody else is on board, but in the case of Savage, I think the victory would be the satisfaction would come in actually having, you know, achieve said goal and finding the people willing enough to put up with, you know, hopefully, you know, a handful of wipes before it's like, oh, I get what I'm supposed to do here. And then we go ahead and get that done. Yeah. So honestly, challenge to you guys for watching the video. 10,000 likes on this one. And before we'll say July, and I'll do Savage. Honestly, like, you know, just there's a scheduling thing. Who knows? I might just do that anyway. But challenge to you guys.
And I'm not saying you need to prep for normal content. Like normal content is story based in this game, and it will spoil it for you. But Savage, outside of E12 having that cutscene, isn't spoiler based.
Yeah,
it's the repeat of the content. And then, you know, I think Dorfin says, coming from WoW and your impressions of 14, people enjoy teaching. Where I'm getting bothered by this is that somebody's taking advantage of that, right? So like I have the ability to pick myself up, but it's like, well, Brian likes teaching. And so like I shouldn't be prepared at all. You know, I asked Llama if he wanted me blind, and he sent me a series of guides. So don't just show up and be like, yeah, I mean, it's really a courtesy that I was lazy. It was a kindness that I did no work, because without asking Brian, I knew for a fact that he wanted to spend his evening teaching me basics. I just, it's a kindness of my own heart. Like somewhere in there, there's a tiny bit of self-responsibility. And like, I'm probably coming across as like a giant jerk. I've had a long, rough day. And that's not what I mean by this. Enjoy games. I just think MMOs, there's been this push again where like people are like, well, 14 is not an MMO, it's an MO. Not in Savage, it's not. Not in Savage, it's not.
Yeah.
And so as I start to watch more of this content and consume more of this content, there is this side of the community that I don't like. And I don't know. I guess I just wanted to ask you where it came from. I ended up mostly talking, but I just wanted to know.
I've been enjoying your thoughts.
Where does it even come from? Where does it? What am I missing? How am I not understanding?
I think it's how the game is designed. I think essentially that what we've talked about numerous times is that my hope for Endwalker is a reinvigoration into what I would call the mid-core tier content, and I don't want it stair-stepped. I don't want another difficulty level. I want a piece of content that challenges and pushes that player forward. Take a look at dungeons, right? 4-man dungeon. Does that get you ready for Savage? Doesn't. Like, I doubt it. You know.
No, this game does not.
If you do Savage, you're going to crush that dungeon super fast. Right. Like the fact is like if there is this gap, and on certain jobs that gap could vary. You know, we talk about skill ceilings and floors here on the channel and have numerous times. But when we look at that, it's like, you know, the deep dungeon is a good example of how something progresses in difficulty, and you can power up and you can keep pushing yourself. And people have said, like, I wish people would stop recommending Heaven on High and Deep Dungeon for leveling because it doesn't teach them anything about how to actually play this game. That is true. That is true. But neither does Praetorium. But neither does the story. But neither does, like, that's the thing. Like, and so that's where, like, I put out a video this week on how to master every job in Final Fantasy. And in that video, it just talks about Final Fantasy analytics, like 14 analytics. Like, that tells me where I can improve, and that gives me personalized goals that I can go. But there are so many steps. There's so much path of resistance to getting to actually the information that you, the player, would benefit from.
None of it's in game,
and none of it's in game,
and then requires a breach of terms.
Right, exactly, and that's part of the problem, because essentially, like, you don't, like, if you're on PlayStation and I was on PC, you wouldn't actually have to break terms, but one of us does. In order to get there, you know, so somebody has to.
I don't have to run red lights to be at work on time, but I do need somebody to drive for me.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so when we factor that in, and we factor the content, I really would love to see some more investment into like a progressive dungeon in which that eventually you, the player, are going to hit a wall, and hopefully that content's exciting and new, so then it invites you to take one step further. And one, like, I like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think the stair, that stair for a lot of players who've actively played the game or played in that kind of content before, like, it's not intimidating. Like, there's
even
nothing
from another game.
But when we talk to
B14
in our mid non-video thing between the videos today, when we talk about content creation, sometimes that hill feels like it's unsurmountable, so you don't, or you freeze, or you hopefully let somebody carry you over there. Like, I was talking to my trainer, and I'm challenging him to go and at least try the thing that he says that he wants. He might not like it. You might get over the end of the hill and be like, not for me. But at least you know, as opposed to, like, not ever knowing. You know, like, you kind of had this little rant talking about, and we'll wrap up this video here in a second, but you had this little rant talking about how people give so much, like, applause for somebody thinking of jumping into content creation. You see that post showing up on Reddit, like, hey guys, I'm thinking about getting into content creation. What kind of content would you like to see? Oh, you know, and you got frustrated because it's this double-edged sword. Like, make something and then, you know,
right,
etc. As opposed to, like, I'm thinking, because then they get the lauds, the whatever the term is.
And now you don't get them when you actually do the thing. So why would you do the thing?
Right.
Like, you already got the reward.
Hey guys,
that same group of people isn't going to thank you again.
Right. And so it's like that, you know, like, getting over that kind of mindset. It's a personalized thing. There's nothing you can do about it. And I think you know, it's a hard thing because you don't want to come off and be like, you can't play this. You don't gatekeep. You can't play this game unless you're willing to do whatever. but I don't want to do all that. I just want to do the story. No. That's why the message exists. I think there is a content gap that could help bridge that. As to what that content gap is to help with the skills, that's up for debate. And so that's the question to you guys always in chat, and that's the guys used in the community. Let us know in the comments like what would fill that gap for you, so that that helps. Like especially if you're on that. Like I'm not the Savage Raider. Chris is actually now the Savage Raider.
Expert role quests and expert scenario quests where you're in with like 8-man trusts and you're actually held to do your role and do your job and do damage before the boss kills you in mechanics. That's what shows you like, hey, I got to go learn something.
Right. I can't clear this content.
It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be a terms of service breach thing, but there's got to be something in game that covers the gap.
Yeah. Chat saying expert dungeons. That's exactly like.
Yep.
And Palace of the Dead to a degree is that, but it isn't that.
The expert's the word. The problem is right now, like Diamond EX does not prepare you for 9 through 12 at Savage.
Right. 100%. Well, guys, that's all for this video. We didn't really do an introduction, but it was just an organic subject that just kind of popped in. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that like button. And my wife texted me saying, like, you don't have time to do Savage. So thanks for watching, babe. I love you. Anyway, for Work to Game, my name is Brian.
My name's Chris.
Thanks for watching. Hopefully you have a fantastic day. We hope to see you on our next one. But until then,
he's Brian.
He's Brian.